Why hello everyone, I'm your lovely host Innocent, and welcome to today's video. Yeah, this is a little bit more different than what I'm usually doing, but I've been wanting to do something like this for quite some time, but I didn't know how to do it. I'm thinking of calling this Read With Me, maybe? I don't know. Title of the series is up to speculation, but what this is all about is I love reading. I love reading books. I love reading like actual books that are tangible that you can read, and I have a lot of them. And I want to share them with people. And other than that, I wanted to get into audiobooks and narrating that. So without without really having anyone wanting my voice to do that, because I'm mostly for characters and things like that, not really narration, I figured that I should just start doing it myself, because why not? I have a YouTube channel, I have books, I have a microphone, and I have a voice. What more do I need? Now, I'm not going to be going and reading like the entire book for everyone here. No. That would be a little bit cheating. I mean, people have to pay money for books. If they're free online, maybe. But you want to pay money for these books. They're really good books. So I'm only going to be reading maybe the first chapter, maybe the prologue, just a little taste of what you're going to be getting into. Really simple stuff. Today's book is Betwixters, Once Upon a Time by Laura C. Cantu. Now, what's special about this is I actually have met Laura, and I actually have done work with her husband, I believe, and he commissioned me for some art during Christmas, and maybe I'm going to be doing more with them soon. I don't really know. Nothing is official, nothing is even set in stone, but things have been talked about, so why not just give them a little promo? Because I've had this book since a little before Christmas, and like maybe a month before Christmas. I've had this for a while. I've had this since December, and I've had this book. I haven't had the time to read it because I've been waiting on the audiobook myself, because I've been so busy with art commissions and YouTube and everything that I haven't had the time to sit down and read. And it saddens me because I love reading and I have this book with me and I haven't been even able to touch it. I've like skimmed through it here and there, but it saddens my heart. It breaks my heart, really. So I figured I'd read the prologue of this book. I don't believe this is the first one in the series of this one, so if things are a little bit confusing, we'll both be in the same boat because this is going to be the first one I've read from her. But I wanted to start this with something lighthearted, so Betwixters is... Here, I'll read the back. A mysterious forest near the cozy town of Harrogate, England, is more than what it seems. The gnarled trees appear to breathe, gloomy storms follow you around, and prowling shadows come to life before your very eyes. Referred to as the Dark Wood by the townsfolk, the forest is guarded by a strange old man and creatures not of this world. Even the locals never set foot in the bewitched woodlands, and trespassers have a way of turning up dead. When Noah Walters moves to town with his parents, his father, a contractor working on a top-secret project for a private security firm, makes Noah promise to never enter those woods. But he doesn't know that fate has other plans. Noah and his new best friends, Ethan and Sky, are chased into the dark woods by Grucker, a schoolyard bully, and their lives are changed forever. They are forced into the heart of the forest, where they discover a lost fairy who needs their help to find her way back home before it's too late. Join Noah and his friends on a magical adventure as they race against time and plunge headfirst into the unknown. They are challenged with secrets to keep, a dangerous mission to accomplish, and the tests of courage that will bring them face to face with magical creatures they thought only existed in fairy tales. This is more than a tale of discovery, mystery, and excitement. It is an epic adventure that will usher you into a world where magic is in the air, in the trees, and in every heart. Isn't it adorable? So, I've heard a lot of people say that this book series is like Harry Potter, but more magical creature focused rather than magic spell focused and that type of thing. But it's about 3 kids who are bullied and thrust into the unknown paradox of the magical realm, which has fairies and gnomes and what's the talking trees called? Those things. And all this type of stuff, and they have to battle new demons rather than the bullies. And then the fairies stuff anyway. Let's jump right into the prologue, shall we? Yes, it's book 2 in the Vathalite realms. Yes, this is book 2. So if we're confused, that's something to be had. Prologue. The birth of a new day. A menacing glare from wicked, miserable eyes pierced the depths of Niveaeh's soul. She squirmed uncomfortably under its weight. Her wings involuntarily shuddered. "I found ye," the stranger spoke in a gravelly and sinister voice. "Tell me your name, lass." No matter how much she tried to resist, she felt an irresistible desire to say, "Niveaeh?" "You don't say." Yellow, decaying teeth hid behind his crooked sneer. "Me Chandor will be best pleased to meet you." "Chandor?" she gasped, imagining a horrified winged demon crafted from pure evil. She never perceived a Chandor before, but she'd seen numerous depictions of them in her childhood, human tale scrolls. Scenes showing wars between Chandors and their counterparts. Those angelic beings known as the Bellweavers plagued her inner sight. It was only a matter of seconds, however, before an even more worrisome idea infected her awareness. In those same scrolls, she recalled seeing images of creatures more dangerous than even the Chandors. They were supposedly so wicked, they had created all that was corrupt in the world, including the Chandors. She searched the elderly stranger's dry and saggy wrinkles, as realization hit her like a swarm of plump bumblebees. He looked like one of those abysmal monsters. He looked like a human. Niveaeh woke with a jerk. Discombobulated and confused, she looked around, taking in her surroundings. A relieved sigh escaped her lips as she wiped the sweat from her brow. "It wasn't real. It was just a night phantasm. Oh, thank good mother." There she was, nestled safe and sound inside her beautiful pink lily, in the magical forest of Ayin, her home and the kingdom of the fairies. The flower she had chosen as her bed for the night opened as father's sun peeked over the horizon, and a wake-up fairy sprinkled rays of sunshine over the lustrous petals. Like the wake-up fairy, Niveaeh harvests beams of sunlight, but was thankful that she didn't have to work in the day-dawning department. She couldn't fathom how anyone could enjoy waking up while it was still dark outside, even if it was to birth a new day. As the lily's petals stretched to greet the morning, so did Niveaeh. First, her pale yellow legs, each one in turn, then her arms together, and finally, her shimmering pink and yellow wings. While she loved sleeping snug and warm, enveloped in the luxurious embrace of the flowers, the thing she loved most was waking to a brand new day, full of potential. The lily stem bowed to drop Niveaeh gently to the forest floor, where the young fairy scooped up a handful of dew from a blade of grass and splashed it over her face. The water was much colder than she anticipated, and she yelped, startling Old Grum, a wandering gnome who'd ventured out of the gnome kingdom of Gwendovia. The squat fellow had been staying in Ayin the past few months. He, like many other gnomes she'd encountered, seemed to think every kingdom of the enchanted realm of Afaelwyn was his for the napping, including the kingdom of Fairy. Nevaeh couldn't fathom being so bold. Sure, she hoped to visit each region someday, but she wouldn't dare venture into other lands without invitation. The idea seemed ridiculous, and she giggled as she imagined dropping in on a couple of elven friends in the kingdom of Etrophith. The fifth. Fantasy words are hard.
What are you giggling about? Can't you see I'm busy here? Thought I'd found a peaceful snoozing spot, and then here you come along, bumbling around and making all kinds of racket. Don't you know not to bother an old gnome when he's napping?
Old Grum complained. He arrived with a gnome stool slung over one shoulder and declared that wherever he laid down was his home. And who was Nevaeh to argue? She, like other fairies, was a custodian of the forests, not its owner. If he wanted to stay, then he could. Maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't be so grumpy when he left.
Oh, you fairy folk, always flying about with your magic this and enchanted that. Can't you take the time to sit down for once?
Old Grum rubbed his eyes.
There's nothing to prepare an old gnome for the day. A head like a good fine sit-down after a good night's sleep.
Nevaeh slung her enchanted pouch over her shoulder and rose into the air. She hovered above the squat gnome's head and bent forward to look at him right in his small, beady eyes. We each have a unique purpose, Mr. Grum, and mine is to bring nourishment and life force to the plant dwellers. When might I find time to rest? Not when Father Sun is awake, I tell you that. Furthermore, there's no grass to comb, shrubs to feed, pollen to scatter, and buds to hatch. Do you think a beautiful forest like this happens by magic alone?
Doesn't it?
Said the gnome, sputtering into his white beard. No, a lot of hard work goes into keeping an enchanted forest. Well, enchanting. It simply won't do, lying about in a flower bed all day, like some I could mention, especially with spring upon us. Old Grum got to his feet and wrung the dew from his hat. It had been pointy when he'd first arrived, but nowadays it flopped over to one side. He pulled it down hard on his head so that his ears stuck out from under its large, floppy brim. He did his best to prop it up his peak, but it still looked like a wilted weed, no matter how hard he tried.
Spring, you say? It's about time we had some change in these parts. Winter's too cold for my liking. Snow's all well and good. Pretty if you like that sort of thing, but you can't beat a good bit of sunshine.
He locked his thumb into his wreathed suspenders and tilted back on his heels as he sniffed the air.
Oh, well, I'll be. The scent of spring is in the air.
The very thought of spring made Nevaeh's heart soar. Spring was a time for new growth and change, a time to let go of ideas and to create new beautiful visions that would form the foundations on which the forest would thrive. It was also the busiest time of year for Nevaeh and her workmates from the Sunbeam sector. Gathering enough sunlight during the season prone to cloudy skies and spring showers was quite challenging when there was so much new life to assist in the world, and nurturing new seedlings and sprouts was a vital part of their jobs. Likewise, it was the Sunbeam sector's responsibility to help awaken those plant dwellers which lay dormant through the winter. The forest must wake up, and although winter has its own chilly charms, Nevaeh would take blossoms over icicles any day. You'll see, Mr. Grum. This will be the most splendid spring ever.
Well, you better get a move on, hadn't you? No point flapping your wings in my face when I've got some good resting up to do. I just think you could be out there talking to blackberries or whatever you lot get up to.
With that, old Grum sat back against the gnome stool and yanked the brim of his hat over his eyes, leaving just enough of a gap for him to watch the fairy zigzag off through the pollen-laden air.
Bah! Fairies.
To take a break from reading, I just wanted to say, Laura, if you ever do see this and you want this taken down, do let me know. I will take it down in a heartbeat. You got my number. Call me, text me, do whatever you want. Just let me know. I'll take it down. I don't want any harm or no bad feelings. Nothing like that. I just want to share everything that's great about your work. I hope you understand. By the time Father Sun reached his zenith, Nevaeh began to wonder if she'd overdone it. Her wings ached and sputtered like tattered whirling maple seeds. If she didn't land soon, she might just crash. And that would be dreadful. All fairies took pride in their work, but Nevaeh went above and beyond the call of duty. Today was no different. She'd taken it upon herself to go farther into the enchanted woodlands of Aeon than she'd ever been before. Sure, there were the traveling fairies who roamed far and wide in beetle-drawn caravans, spreading life wherever they went, but even they couldn't be everywhere all the time. Nevaeh thought about how pleased Mother Nature, more commonly called Good Mother by the Fae, would be with all the work she would be accomplishing, and a sense of adventure filled her heart. She threw her arms wide and let Father Sun's radiance fill her to the brim. It was his life-giving energy Nevaeh would take with her into the dark parts of the wood. Yet, to bring cheer to that kind of gloom, she would have to do more than simply absorb radiance. She would have to capture a few super sunbeams. The trick was to catch them unaware. Nevaeh quickly flitted over to a lush maple tree and landed on one of its many branches. Tucking behind a bundle of budding leaves, she watched and waited for a super sunbeam to appear. To her satisfaction, it didn't take long for the brilliant blaze of light to flash through the sky, and she couldn't help but smile. This super sunbeam was fast, bright, and full of potential. It would make a wonderful gift for a seedling in need of some extra love and attention. As the sunbeam approached, a rush of excitement coursed through Nevaeh's veins, fueling her enthusiasm until it would seem she would explode. Her wings twitched. The sunbeam stopped mid-motion and cautiously dimmed its light until only a faint shimmer remained. It was a cloaking mechanism. She knew it all too well. If she didn't make her move soon, the super sunbeam would escape. Nevaeh pounced. Lunging forward with her hands outstretched, she grabbed for the super sunbeam, but unexpectedly missed. The world suddenly became a blur of blues and greens as she spiraled out of control and barreled towards the forest floor. Luckily, she regained her balance just in time to keep from slamming into a spiky tangle of wild blackberry bushes. Taking a moment to let her dizziness wear off, Nevaeh attentively reached out and traced her fingers along one of the blackberry bushes' many sharp and foreboding thorns, which were large enough to spear a fairy her size. An involuntary shudder ran the length of her body. So much for doing it the hard way. I think it's time to break out my suncatcher. Much like her dream catcher, Nevaeh's suncatcher consisted of a hoop made from whistled willow branches and a net of intricately laced fairy silk. Unlike the taunt net in her dream catcher, however, her suncatcher's net fell loosely away from its hoop, creating an undiluted, iridescent, bubble-like pocket. With the remaining strength in her wary wings, Nevaeh hoisted herself into the air. She flew towards the treetops until she reached an opening patch of the sky, where she could clearly see Father Sun without obstructions. The climb was more difficult than she expected, and she hovered into the unusually thick and heavy air for a long while, struggling to stay aloft. She couldn't remember ever having to fight so hard just to fly, fatigued or not. Was Sister Sky moody and messing with her? Or had Nivea finally reached her limit? She started to conclude that perhaps she was not as fit as she supposed, but that didn't explain the nagging feeling that was suddenly swelling up in the pit of her stomach. Something was dreadfully off in the forest today. Something was out of balance. More determined than ever, Nivea began waving her suncatcher through the air. Beautiful tones and melodies emitted from the fairy silk as the wind coursed through the lace-like net. The melodies were irresistible to super sunbeams and would attract them like gold attracts leprechauns. The downside was that the tunes could hoodwink fairies as well. If she paid too close attention to them, she might get caught up in the spell and find herself bamboozled for up to 3 days. She knew from experience that that could be quite embarrassing. The task was difficult, but she pulled it off. Her enchanted pouch was soon filled to the brim and popping at the seams, jam-packed with squirming super sunbeams. Relieved to finally relax her wings, she descended to land on the gnarled root of an ancient oak tree. The uneasy feeling in her stomach unexpectedly dissipated. Pleased, she smiled and stretched her arms wide, hugging the tree. "Good afternoon, Mr. Oak. You're in a treat for today. Just wait to see what I brought you." Careful not to let any escape, Nivea extracted 2 radiant sunbeams from her pouch and massaged them into the old tree's roots. "Now, doesn't that feel delightful? I bet you didn't expect sunbeam delivery service today." Nivea patted the oak's withered trunk. Oh, well, it's the least I can do for a great oak like yourself. But you'll have to excuse me. I must be on my way. You have a wonderful day, you hear? Nivea didn't wait for a response. Most trees, especially old ones, could take a very long time to speak, and she didn't have a moment to spare if she hoped to be back in time for the evening feast. As Nivea walked away, she happened to spot a fallen acorn, its hull dull and weathered. She bent down and plucked it from between an old tree's roots and began polishing its exterior. Don't you worry, Mr. Oak. She may look a little worn, but she's unusually powerful. I'll be sure to find her a perfect home. Tucking the acorn into her pouch so it can marinate in the sunbeams, she continued on her way. Before long, Niveaeh arrived at a stream. Its brilliant blue water bubbled and churned down a twisted, narrow ravine. She considered crossing, but quickly thought better of it, content to walk along its banks and enjoy the playful melodies of some nearby water nymphs. A few songs into her walk, she spotted a purple nymph, basking in the sunlight on the stream's bank. Oh, excuse me, Miss Nymph. I want to let you know that I think your singing is divine. If it's no trouble, might I make a request? The nymph hastily hopped into the water and fled without a single backward glance. Nevaeh thought she must have scared the poor thing. In fact, she figured it must have scared a lot of them, because suddenly there was no more music to be heard. She looked down and mumbled, "Oops. Sorry, friends." At that moment, her gaze landed on the perfect spot to plant the acorn. She clapped her hands together and jumped up and down in glee from the thought of the little acorn blossoming into a great oak tree, living a vibrant life and bringing shade to the creatures of the woodlands. Made Niveaeh's heart burst with delight, causing her pale yellow skin to glow. There was one teeny problem. When she fluttered her wings and tried to lift herself from the ground, nothing happened. She tried again and then 4 more times. It was no use. Her wings were too tired and sore for even the shortest of flights. Frowning, she looked at the acorn's prospective new home. It wasn't anyone's fault that the ideal spot for the seedling happened to be on the opposite side of the now menacing stream. Oh, not so charming now, are you, Miss Stream? She mumbled. Funny how perspective changes things. Niveaeh needed to think. How might she get across? I wonder if there's any nearby grasshoppers. She made the customary whistle to summon possible hopper and waited for one of her oversized friends to show up and allow her onto its back, but none came. Niveaeh paced and deliberated. Oh, what to do? Hopeful that a better spot to plant the seedling, or at least one just as good, might present itself, Niveaeh glanced around. She headed towards the area that looked suitable, and although it wasn't as inviting as the other one on the other side of the stream, she figured it might do. She bent to ask permission from Good Mother for the planting, but quickly straightened, chastising herself. Oh, how could you, Niveaeh? You promised that old oak that you would find the perfect home, and by the light of Father's Son, that's what you're going to do. There was no way she could bring herself to settle for anything less than the sunny bank with plush green and dark, rich-looking soil. Niveaeh stepped up to the bank and examined her options as she gave herself a pep talk. I can do this. It's a nice little stream. She dipped her toe into the water and shivered. A nice little stream full of ice-cold water? Not a problem. Nymphs do it all the time. She found a crossing point that seemed promising and worked up her courage. Hold on tight, little acorn. Here we go! She stepped into the frigid water. Icy currents engulfed Niveaeh's ankles and swirled violently around her legs. The stream's bed suddenly gave way under her feet, causing her to slip backwards into the water with a splash. She furiously tried to bat her wings and instinctively grabbed onto a nearby vine, but it dislodged, having an immediate pile of foliage to hang on directly over her. She barely managed to wrap her wings around her body before the pile collapsed on top of her, plunging her underwater. If fear existed within her heart, this would be the moment for it to take hold. But like most young fairies, fear was a foreign thing to her, as plastic spoons, jelly beans, and friendly trolls. The one thing she could think of was the poor little acorn trapped in her pouch. She'd been so keen to give it a helping hand, and now here she was, completely helpless, being carried downstream. Her head popped up above the water and she gasped for air. Her wings were too wet to be useful now, so she did the best to swim to shore. Like most creatures born to fly, she wasn't the greatest swimmer. She paddled fiercely as she could, but the current was just too strong. The stream must stop somewhere. It can't go on forever. The more she considered her predicament, the more she realized that she had no idea where the stream went. Perhaps it was one of those lazy rivers Old Gum had been reminiscing about a few weeks back. According to him, lazy rivers went round and round with no beginning and no end. That would be terrible! In a burst of effort, Nevaeh fought against the current. Gradually, the shore came closer. Now, all she had to do was latch on to exposed root or a tuft of grass and she could pull herself to safety. Downstream, Nevaeh spied a small green tree growing along the bank. She praised Good Mother. It was exactly what she needed. She lined herself up to float directly into the path of one of its roots. As chance would have it, that was the moment she noticed something peculiar. The landscape looked distorted, as though a transparent bubble overlapped the stream. The tree's roots that protruded from the bank were skewed and they didn't quite match up with where they hit the surface of the water. Stranger still, the whole section of the stream at the bank appeared stretched. What in the realm of fairyland could that possibly be? Nevaeh squinted, focusing on the area. Her breath suddenly caught in her throat as she realized what she was seeing. Oh no, not a precarious portal! She gasped, choking down water. Coughing, Nevaeh paddled furiously and reached for anything that might help her escape. She had been warned about the precarious portals. They could lead anywhere, and some of the nastier ones, known as permutation precarious portals, had the power to strip all of the joy from the fairy's heart and transform her into... No! Anything but that! Nevaeh reached out, her fingers clamping around the small vine as she pulled as hard as she could. Instead of towing Nevaeh to safety, the vine rushed at her, entangling her wrists. Good Mother! A giant wave suddenly hovered over her, like a great king cobra ready to strike. Nevaeh inhaled sharply. The wave crashed down on her, driving her into the stream's gloomy depths. She fought to free her hands and kicked with all of her might, but it was no use. The icy water pressed on with the weight of a dozen caravan beetles. The stream continued to sweep her along its rocky bottom towards the portal. If she had chosen between going through the portal or dying at the bottom of the stream, Nevaeh would have preferred death, but the stream didn't ask. A rush of bubbly water suddenly hit her, spinning her into a whirlpool and loosening the vine and trapping her arms. The vine fell away as if it had never been there. A current of warm water plucked her out of the whirlpool's spiral and flung her upwards. She soared through the air, and to her dismay, she landed right back into the turbulent stream. Nevaeh paddled wildly, arms flailing, feet kicking. Down the stream she went, eyes fixed on her unavoidable destiny. Yielding to her misfortune, she figured that there was one last thing she needed to do before leaving her home and all she knew. With great sorrow, Nevaeh hastily pushed her farewells into the consciousness of every plant dweller in the vicinity. Goodbye, dear friends. She sent the plants feelings of love mixed with grief that she would no longer be able to assist them in the growth and development. She was surprised to feel an ancient presence waft into her awareness. Its whisper was soft and kind. As a token of my gratitude, please accept my gift. A strong sense of calm suddenly passed over Nevaeh. It was a peace like none she had ever experienced. For a moment, she felt as though everything was right in the world, exactly as it should be. She was grateful for the gift of serenity, but it didn't keep her question from tugging at her mind. Before she got sucked away, she wished to know one last thing. Who are you? She reached out to the ancient and powerful presence with her mind. A whisper as calm as a summer's breeze floated into her attention. "Thank you for watching over my seedling," Nevaeh whispered. "Mr. Oak?" Right before she squeezed her eyes shut and hugged her pouch tightly to her chest. The stream hurled Nevaeh through the portal. And that was the prologue. What did you guys think? I know that this was a little bit lengthy of a video, but when you're reading, it kind of takes a while. If you want to know more about this book, or possibly get your hands on it yourself, I'll link you to Laura's Amazon page where you can get all of the books in her series. They're relatively inexpensive the last time I checked, so why not? And I believe there is Kindle versions and things like that, and there's going to be an audiobook narrated by Terry Fader. Yep, the one and only Terry Fader. I believe he does up to 20 voices in this whole book. So that's something I'm waiting to get my hands on that one for I can finally read the rest of it, because I'm way too busy to read a book that's just about 300 pages long. It's not a big book, by the way. Not a big book at all. And it's meant for younger adults, teens, that type of deal. It's a cute little read. I would recommend this. And she does all of her own art. So far. Wink wonk. So, I would say go and check her out. Her social media, her Amazon page, all of that will be linked down in the description below. So if you want anything to do with her, I would go suggest following her on her social media. She's very active on her Instagram and Facebook page. I haven't seen her much on Twitter as of late, but she does have a Twitter, if that's your thing. She posts a lot of inspirational quotes and pictures from conventions that she's been at, and she's just an all-around nice person. Really, even if you're not interested in her books, go and drop her a like and a nice comment saying Innocent sent ya. Without further ado, I really do hope you enjoyed your time with this. I want to do more like this. I'll see what other books I can read that have very short chapters and or prologues, and that they wouldn't mind me reading a chapter on the internet. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time, and I hope to see you all so very soon. Peace out. Bye-bye.